you want to go get it, it's not going to come to you.
My EV was about 75 and my body weight was around 155, around that. Since I joined that, I'm up to almost one.
All right, all right, all right. We're going to be starting up here in a second. All right, all right, all right. Should be good to go. All right, guys. Well, welcome into another day of Coffee and Baseball. I'm your host, Evan Mendoza. Played 7 years of professional baseball between the St. Louis Cardinals and the San Diego Padres, and it looks like Stream OBS is starting to crash on me. That ain't ideal. If you guys can hear me, can see me, that's great, but it looks like OBS is starting to crash. A little bit off to a late start this morning, but if you see me go live again, it's probably because, like I said, OBS has how can I use water bags to help sequence in my swing. So in my opinion, water bags aren't great for sequencing. If anything, water bags are great for basically, more or less like the rotational side of things. But before we get started, guys, one of my favorite things to do always is to delete this guy right here and put it over to 7, because today is day 17 of streaming every single day. And hopefully like OBS will stop crashing on me, and that way I can actually help you guys out. Can you guys hear me? I want to make sure you guys can hear me. Let me just double check. Okay, it is. So whatever reason, OBS is giving me the spinny wheel of death. But yeah, guys, if you have any baseball-related questions, feel free to ask. This is going to be a Q&A mostly. And then I'm going to, of course, be able to answer your guys' questions with whatever comes up your way, with whatever specific situation that you guys have going on right now. And I did have a couple of questions already in the chat. So let's go. So my son's a left-handed pitcher, but he hasn't touched 85. So he's basically 85 or less. Is patience still warranted? It really depends on what your son's graduation year is, right? So if your son's graduation year is not the best, this is where, like, as far as his graduation year, if he's a grad, 2026, that's probably not the best. But since he is a lefty, you don't have to necessarily be thrown super hard. If he's a 2027 though, he still has time. If he's a 2028, he still has time as well. So like those are the things that I always like to think about, and definitely help me better understand your guys' situation as well. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, also let me know. You know what? We're not going to go live on Facebook right now because it's giving us some issues. But yeah, guys, if you have any baseball-related questions, feel free to ask, because that's what I do here. So yeah, with the time frame of depending on what his graduation year is, that's going to be depending on basically how much time you're allowed to, basically stay patient, right? Let me actually, I always forget to do this on the very first one. I always like to keep this as just like one singular layer at the very top. But yeah, guys, ask your baseball related questions. That's why I do these lives. So let's get back into it. My son's undersized but performs well in the games. Do coaches trust production or projection? So great question. So let's talk about production. Ooh. Versus projection. That's actually a really good topic. Do you guys like that topic? Because I'll go into a deep dive real quick if you guys like it. If you guys hate it, then I definitely won't. But do you guys like that idea of projectability versus production out there on the field? Because I will record this if OBS doesn't crash on me. And I'm curious if anyone is familiar with OBS, because one thing that I'm doing right now is trying to figure out why it's not responding. Which is not always the best thing ever. Yeah, application not responding. So that typically means that at some point in time, this stream could crash. So I don't know if I want to like reset it now or reset it later, but it is what it is. Yeah, so let's talk about it. All right. Production is basically what we're doing as far as our game. That's basically performing, each and every day, going 2 for 4, making a good defensive play, maybe, pitching, 87 miles an hour because you're getting it done right now. But on the side of production, if, you're like the example said, if your son's like 5'7", that's going to be where, like, yes, if he's doing these things at a shorter, ability of basically his height, doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to be projectable. For example, I remember a guy, he was about 5'7", Mason Wynn with the Cardinals. This was an area where he was really, really young and very, very short, but he also threw like 97 miles an hour. So don't get too caught up with height, because height doesn't necessarily measure like the heart that we're really putting into the work ethic, making sure that our arm is good in quality, and that way we can not necessarily have the idea of projectability, but we also have the production and the projection. The projection is really going to come from how is he going to play out in that next level. Is he going to be able to swim with the big boys, so to speak? These are things that college coaches and then also pro scouts will also be looking into and making sure that like that is an ability for you or your son, right? I don't know how many players are watching this live right now, but if you guys are enjoying this type of content, make sure to follow me. Make sure to also hit the subscribe button over on YouTube, because YouTube is definitely the place to be. It's a lot more efficient to be able to like kind of be interactive, ask questions, things of that nature. So I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys some guidance in that department. As far as this morning, how this morning has been going, guys, I'm actually really, really loving how I can integrate. And by the way, like if anybody has any clue on what N8N is, that would be awesome, because that basically tells me that we share very similar minds. But basically, I'll never forget when I was a freshman in high school, I took a class called POE, Principles of Engineering. And in that class, Principles of Engineering, I'll never forget, one of the biggest projects of the semester was a marble sorting machine. So basically think we have red marbles compared to blue marbles, compared to black marbles, compared to white marbles, and we had to sort these out. And it was literally like Legos, and we had to build something that sorted them out. And the cool thing is like the physical components was like, obviously part of the mechanism, but then also on the internal side, as far as the IT, basically building out a software that ran this. And think about like an architecture of like kind of like a building, like a blueprint. That's what we had to build as far as like an automation workflow. And that's basically to kind of wrap up this point, because you guys might be getting bored by now. We're not talking about web flows and things like that and optimization, but N8N is very much so like that. You connect like 2 different nodes, and basically with those 2 different nodes, you basically build up workflows. And that's basically what started my engineering curiosity, is that class, Principles of Engineering. It was just a really fun class I'll never forget. And because I was instilled into like building workflows and stuff like that, like that's what I'm doing now, and that's what I was doing this morning. And that's why I also started up a little bit late, because I was too much into the weeds of that, and I kind of got lost track of time. And I started up this live like literally at 11 o'clock, when usually I'm like a good 5 minutes early. But yeah, I was building out a workflow that basically automatically will review eligibility reviews. And basically eligibility reviews, as you guys know, are basically how students will join into my academy. But nonetheless, I will stop yapping about engineering and workflows and stuff like that, because you guys probably don't necessarily think it's cool. What you guys do think is cool is throwing the ball really hard and far, and hitting the ball far as well. So if you guys have any baseball related questions, definitely do please ask down below in the chat. That's going to be the way to make sure that you get your questions answered at the end of the day. That is one of the most important reasons why I do these lives. So let's get back into it. If nothing changes this season, what's the smartest next move for us? So let me get my coffee. It is Coffee and Baseball. So we have this season, and we have next season. And this is really, for any parents especially listening to this, this is a mindset thing. And you really need to get out of your own way as far as thinking that you can't do anything this season, especially when this season has already not even like necessarily begun. like some warm weather states, maybe Louisiana, Florida, Texas, California, baseball might have started beginning as far as tryouts, and maybe the first game is in a week or two. But if you guys already have this mindset of this season we can't do anything because the season's already going on and I don't have time and this and that, basically excuse after excuse after excuse. Guys, this season, if you have that mindset, that mentality that we can't do anything and we have to wait until the summertime because it's a better time to start developing, better time to focus on the mentality. It's a better time to start getting recruited. Whatever the excuse is, guys, it's not going to play in my world because there's no better time than right now. And the way that I like to really envision this is like, you've heard me use the quote before, and it's one of my favorite quotes: do today what others won't, so you can do tomorrow what others can't, right? So basically, like, we have today, right? We're not talking about tomorrow. We're not talking about next week. We have today. And let's say your son does this, this, and this, right? It's just 3 little tasks, maybe take a combination of 20 or 30 minutes, right? And he does that, and then that way tomorrow, it's his second day. He's building that foundation of consistency, and then he does this, this, and this. And let's just say kid 2, right? Kid number 2 starts on this day. You or your son already has that leverage, already has that one up, right? Of kid number 2 that starts on his first day here and does this, this, and this, but doesn't feel as confident as this player because this player has done it 2 days in a row, whereas this player has only done it 1 day. And ultimately, if we expand that into radical extremes, which is one thing that I always love to kind of really prove the point, guys, if we do all this extra work over here, right, we're doing the work so much and we're just so much more consistent than everyone else compared to player 2 again. And player 2 doesn't feel as confident and they do these things right over here. Whereas, player 1 has been doing all this work and all this preparation beforehand. And because player 1 and player 2 meet at the same time, who do you think is going to be more prepared? Who do you think is going to perform better? And this is not rocket science, guys. I don't want you to think that it's rocket science. It's the one that becomes more prepared that when it's time to get evaluated, when it is time to showcase your skills at a camp or a showcase, who do you think is going to be the one that shows basically these coaches who's the real deal? And ideally, we want it to be your son, right? Let's be honest. We want it to be your son. We don't want it to be the next player or your son's teammate. So always keep that in mind. It is important in my eyes as far as how to basically ensure that your son can remain confident out there on the field when it matters the most. So just keep that in mind, guys. Keep it in mind. It is important. These things aren't just like fluff. If they were fluff, I probably would not be talking about it. And especially on the component of like making sure that we have the right mentality with everything that we've got going on. These are things that matter a lot inside my academy for the projectability, for the performance, production, all that fun stuff, guys. If we do what everyone else is doing, you better expect to get the same results as everyone else. So just keep that in mind, okay? Awesome. If we have any baseball related questions, guys, that's what I'm doing this for. Like I said, my OBS has been like spinning like crazy, so hopefully you guys are able to see everything that I'm drawing on the screen. That's the most important thing. So you guys are able to visualize the learning that I like to teach here every single day at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Today is day 17, by the way. Pretty interesting stuff as far as how you guys ask questions. But yeah, if you guys have any baseball related questions, feel free to ask. Let's get into some more questions. So my son's a 2026 catcher. So senior catcher. 5'10", 175. Pop is 205, 210. Not the best for being a senior. Is that putting him behind? Yeah, so pop time alone, we want this to be like around a 1.9 to really get attention from college coaches. Considering catching is one of just those prime time positions where we need to ensure that our pop time isn't going to be the thing that's holding us back as far as getting that playing time. Guys, I don't know if you guys have recognized this yet, but there's only one catcher. There's only one singular catcher on the diamond at a given time, and that one catcher needs to be able to perform. There's no other way of putting that. That one catcher has to be able to perform. If that one catcher isn't able to block, isn't able to throw, isn't able to make transfers, isn't able to frame, there's going to be another catcher on the catching staff, basically, that will. So if he's already a senior, he's already kind of behind the curve as far as the pop time, this is where we really need to expand his versatility into possibly playing first base, maybe third base, to give him that versatility, because if he's not a good defensive catcher, he's typically not going to last at the college level, because that's one thing that college coaches just do not have any patience for, is a low quality catcher. These are things that honestly matter a ton, especially at the next level, because we don't put up with the chasing balls to the backstop at the college level. And if that's the type of catcher that you or your son is, don't expect to necessarily get the playing time that you want, right? We need to understand what we are going to get is the amount of work that we put in. All right, we got a 2027. By the way, 2027 infielder, if middle infielder, guys, if you're a 2027 or 2028 middle infielder and you're over on YouTube right now, the third link down below in the description is going to detail a little bit about a retreat that I'm trying to put together. Feel free to check that out if you are interested. It's going to be hosted in late October, so way far down into the calendar year. And then also it's going to be in North Carolina. It's going to be ideally after the WWBA Jupiter tournament. And that's just something that I'm trying to put together, trying to see if you guys are interested in it. And if you are, I'll be in contact. We are looking for a very secluded group, so this is not going to be like a volume 100 people at this camp or event. It's not even a camp. It's really a retreat. It's more of a leadership and development type event to be able to network with other skillful athletes that are about to be projectable to play at that next level. So anyway, 2027 middle infielder, if your son is a 2027 or 2028 shortstop, click that link in my bio. You can always go over to my website, MendozABaseballAcademy.com, and then in the menu bar, you'll see something that says events. Go check that out. So he has good hands, but average arm strength. So we got plus hands minus arm. Where does that fit? So it depends on what that arm strength looks like. As a 2027, that's a junior. Ideally, we want to be at least across the infield. We want to be at least greater than, I would say, 85, because this shows that you have enough arm strength to play the middle infield, especially shortstop, for a longer period of time, especially in college. I think it's unnecessary when I see infielders, especially at showcases, throwing like 94 across the diamond. Like, yes, that is cool. Yes, that's going to turn some eyes. But I never had to throw a ball 94 miles an hour in my life, especially in infield and especially in professional baseball. Guys, I played 7 years of professional baseball, also 3 years at the D1 level. I didn't have to throw 94 miles an hour because I had good feet. That footwork is going to take you a lot further. I can promise you this. Your footwork is going to take you as a middle infielder so much further than an incredibly good arm. So if we have plus hands and plus feet, and we're able to attack the ball, we're able to set our feet, we're able to have a quick release with our hands, we don't need to have that arm strength, because again, the majority of the throws that I threw from shortstop to first base, if I had to put a radar on it, the average throughout my entire 7-year professional career probably was like, no joke, probably 65 miles an hour. I did not have to throw that hard, because if I charged the ball the proper way, if it's hit to me, I picked the right hop, and I threw the ball with a decent amount of strength behind it, but not too much where I'm overly exerting myself, and then, accuracy becomes an issue. Guys, like 65 miles an hour is probably what I threw most balls in the infield in my pro career, in pro ball. I didn't have to really go crazy. And that's because of the ability that I had with my footwork again, and because I had good hands. Not saying I didn't have a crazy good arm. I topped out at 91 in high school off of the mound, but across the diamond, I think I topped out 87 or 88. You guys can check out my perfect game if you'd like. My perfect game does have some of the old numbers on them, as far as where I was at with my 60 time, which I think was like a 7.4, which was my best in high school. My arm velo, I think it shows 90, but I think it was like an East Coast Pro or something like that. I hit 91. And then across the diamond, I think I was at 87 or 88. We didn't do exit velocity back then, I don't think. So I'm not sure if that's on there or if that's something that they even do at a perfect game showcase. But yeah, there's just going to be so many constantly new metrics that they're going to be graded on and ways that they're able to implement it into certain showcases. Guys, a lot of these things can be done, and this comes into the conversation as far as like showcases, because showcases, they get pricey, guys. It's not $1 sign, it's not $2, it's not $3, it's not $4, it's really $5, because it's usually like a 1 or 1.5 day event. And typically on day 1, this is where you get all your metrics and do scrimmage. And then day 2, you do like a half scrimmage. And ideally in these, it's really hard to perform when you have like 2 at-bats or you pitch 1 inning, right? So like if you're not a good showcase player, this is going to be really hard for you to showcase your abilities as far as a baseball player. But if you're a showcase player and you have those good metrics, that's going to mean something. But again, these metrics are going to be 60-yard dash time, arm velocity, exit velocity, pop time. These are all things that college coaches will care about as far as your foundational, just like where you are at, right? These are things that are important in the college coach's lens in the whole college recruiting process. It's not the end all be all. And I think a lot of people will like want to think that that's the end all be all. But one thing that we really need to understand is that, especially with the end all be all, your height, weight, guys, your height, you can't necessarily control. And there are guys that I've played alongside with that were 5'7", right? We can't put ourselves into the trap saying that basically we can't play at the next level because we're short, right? Like that's not an excuse anymore, because there's so many players that have played professional baseball that weren't necessarily the tallest guys. So don't use that as an excuse. If anything, use it as a motivator. So that way you can actually like see yourself playing at that next level. Because again, if you're just just doing what everyone else is doing at the high school, you're probably going to get just as good as everyone else. And if you're already undersized, guys, again, I can't just keep reminding you guys, you have to put that extra work in to be able to separate yourself from the rest of the players. If you're not doing anything extra, what are you doing? Are you scrolling on your phone? Are you watching Netflix? Are you playing video games? Are you hanging out with friends? Are you going to parties? Because at the end of the day, one thing, maybe 2 things need to be sacrificed to be able to achieve cool things in the game of baseball. And cool things I refer to as playing Division I baseball, getting drafted, playing pro ball. These things not many people get the opportunity to do, and not many people are also taking those sacrifices into their day-to-day. So if you think about it from that lens, guys, it is really, really important that we make those sacrifices sooner than later so we can start seeing results that not many people get the opportunity to see. But if you guys have any baseball-related questions, guys, the reason why I do these lives is to make sure that this is as specific to your guys' situation as possible. So I'm kind of just like rambling on some topics that I really wanted to speak on today. But if you guys have like specific questions as far as your son's specific situation, his graduation year, his metrics, whatever the case may be, this is going to be your best bet as far as making sure that you have, that correct guidance without me giving you a vanilla answer. And that's why I'm really taking a stand on trying to post a lot better quality content that isn't doom scrolling you. And what I mean by doom scrolling, guys, I don't want you guys to doom scroll on my page, right? I want you to see a post. Maybe it's a 2-minute reel, which is really long, by the way. There's a lot of accounts now and a lot of Instagram baseball coaches that were really high school baseball coaches that really just post these 3-second videos, and they might get some views, but they don't really share any expertise. So that's where I want to be able to share a 2-minute video, because a 2-minute video gives me more time to be able to share my 7 years of professional experience, guys. I can't sum my entire career up into a 3-second video. It's impossible. And to be honest with you, I don't enjoy creating those short form videos. I would much rather be here on live with you guys, so that way I don't give you vanilla answers, I don't give you vanilla advice, I give you a lot more specific advice towards your specific situation. So do not be shy as far as asking any specific questions in the chat. That's what I'm quite literally here for. We're not sure when to seriously consider JUCO. When does that become the smart move? So in my opinion, never. In my opinion, you should yes, there's benefits of becoming a JUCO bandit. If you don't know what a JUCO bandit is. It's basically a workaholic, and an animal had a baby, basically. So yeah, basically like a workaholic and like an absolute gorilla animal had a baby. That's what a JUCO bandit is, because when you go to JUCO, there's a lot less restrictions as far as like NCAA practice guidelines. So what that typically will result into is like really long practices, 8-hour practice, because they can, and because there's no one like up their nose basically watching them every single move under a microscope. So longer practices, also just like the team camaraderie of like making sure that you are able to go after it, balls to the wall, just go crazy. And I played with a lot of JUCO players in professional baseball, and they typically have a little bit of a different mindset, which I think is great, because this type of stuff, a lot of high school baseball players probably see that and like get scared off because you have this, you have that, you have all these other things. But I think the reason why JUCO bandits are okay with this type of mentality is really the fact that when you hit JUCO, like we all know the ranking levels, right? We all know there's D1, which everyone wants to go to. We got D2, we got D3, we got NAIA, and then we got JUCO, right? We all know that for the most part. If you don't, you learned something new today. So the thing is, my nephew's a 6'2" shortstop pitcher, turns 16 next month, sitting 83, 84, tops out at 86, 87. By the way, this is Billy Almonte. Started as a freshman in high school. That's always good. Works hard. How do I get him noticed? We don't have money like that. So as far as notoriety and get those eyeballs, social media will always be your best friend because it is free. How we position that social media integrated within like emailing outreach to these college coaches, that's going to be part of the recruiting strategy. And in that recruiting strategy, that's where we want to make sure that we are providing like a professional approach, right? It's kind of like a job interview resume. We want to make sure we're doing that in the right capacity. So that way we're not just like, making like disqualifying us as a baseball player because of the way that we're abbreviating a specific position. It kind of just like, he doesn't know baseball. He doesn't sound like a baseball player. These are all things that I think are important when communicating for that first time to these college coaches, because they will have a first impression, and these first impressions count. You only get one of them. By the way, the whole recruiting strategy, the social media side, integrating everything into one, that is something that I do to help my students. If your son is 6'2", he's a shortstop pitcher, like that's a dream student for me, because shortstop pitchers typically are the best players out there on the field. He's about to turn 16, so he's probably a sophomore or junior. That's right in the middle of the range of who we work with. So like Billy, if you're interested, click the link in my bio, or down below this YouTube video, since you are over on YouTube, click the first link, and that should take you over to my triple play program. Explains a little bit more about who I am and what I do. But the second link, I would actually think you might actually be best to start on that second link. It's going to be the 7 steps on how to reach out to these college baseball coaches. So I don't necessarily talk about the social media side, but I do talk about the outreaching system that I teach to all my students. It's 7 steps, 7 videos, and it's really, really good. It is completely for free, by the way. So just give over basically your phone number, email, name, and then you'll be able to download it. The first episode's actually free, just so you get an understanding of how I teach. But yeah, definitely look into that 7-step course. It should be that second link. So yeah, look into that right now. And then also, since he is a sophomore, 2027, I mean, he's it sounds like an absolute baller. Check out that retreat also. That's the third link down below this YouTube video as well. But let's get back into it. So we know all these levels. Great question, by the way. I want to make sure that you guys understand, like, the more questions that you ask, the better off it'll be, because that way it's that much more interactive. And especially over on YouTube, if you are listening to this on YouTube, let me know like where you guys are from. I want to know like what state you guys are from, because I want to be able to build an even deeper connection with you guys. And if I don't know like where you guys are listening in from, like I feel like I don't even know you. So feel free to comment like just what state you guys are in. That's going to help me a little bit. I'm trying to take him to a private national team tryout this February. Hopefully he makes it. Okay, Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee area. Awesome. So yeah, like all these national teams, they are good. One thing I will say, I'll get back to this whatever example. One thing I will say about national teams is like it's okay to do it in between sophomore and junior year. Like if you're trying to get on a national team right here, like it's okay. It's not just like the best, in my opinion, it's not the best use of his time. Like it sounds like he, sitting 83, 84, tops out at 86, 87, like that's pretty above average for a sophomore. Now, like if, like what you mentioned, like funds are a little bit tight, this is like the best time to do a national level of travel ball. This, he can still stay local and focus again during the week. Let's just say in the summertime, Monday through Friday, he's focusing on his development. Maybe late Friday, Saturday, Sunday, possibly runs into Monday. That's where tournaments are locally. And that way he's getting those game reps, but most importantly, his majority of his focus will always be on the development. So that way he can, instead of playing national level and not necessarily optimizing his development, what if, and this is just like a scenario, right? It's not necessarily going to come true, but like let's say he's topping out at 86, 87 and he plays a lot of games because he's going to the national teams, but he's not focusing on the development, and junior year rolls around and he's still throwing 86, 87, right? Because we didn't necessarily put that priority on the development. So that's where, like, in my mind, if we put that priority on the development now, and then in between, again, junior and senior year in this summer, he's throwing 91, 93. This isn't going to matter. Like, you guys are going to look back and be like, it doesn't matter what we did as far as the games we played in between sophomore and junior year, and especially with, like, the focus on the development, because the development focus led us to a 91, 93, which now we're getting a lot more notoriety. And this is typically when that recruiting process will happen. Now, if your son's a sophomore, like, let's talk about it. It's February 2nd of sophomore year. So we all kind of know the August 1st. So let's talk about it. We got February, March, April, May, June, July. And that's it, because at the end of July, so we got 6 months. 6 months to really build out that recruiting strategy. So that way, when August 1st really happens, we have a game plan, right? And this is something that I feel like a lot of people just don't realize makes sense. I just want him to play better competition in the summertime. So that's like, that's the frustrating thing, because like I remember playing travel ball at 11U, at 9U. I think I started when I was at 9U. And I wanted the same thing. I wanted better competition to help me basically develop my skills. I get that, especially from the parents' perspective. In the summer, that's why I'm taking him to national team tryout. Last year, he played with the high school teammates. So you'd be surprised, because like him playing against better competition is not going to get him better. What is going to get him better is basically if he really absolutely focuses on the gym, that will get him better. This is something that was explained to me when I was in high school by our high school head coach's son, who was an area scout for the Giants. And I remember even thinking about him telling us this. I didn't buy into his methodology from the get-go. Like, I really didn't, because I was like, I don't know. Like, taking time away from playing baseball, how am I going to get better at playing baseball if I don't play baseball? Until I did it in between my sophomore and really my junior year. That's when I stayed local. I didn't necessarily do the whole national team or anything like that. And I really focused on the gym. And that gym is what propelled me from my, I was sitting probably like 84 for my velo around my sophomore year, very similar to your son. And I come back my junior year, and that's when I'm typically sitting like around 87, 88. And I think it was right before my senior year, that's when I started topping out at like 90, 91. So it's through the development, that's what's going to get your son better. It's not by playing the better competition. Again, playing better competition, like, yes, it's going to expose him to better competition. It's going to make him realize what else is out there, but it's not necessarily going to get him better. If anything, it's going to make him more competitive and being able to compete. But no knock on that, but the comp wasn't very good playing locally, and I get that. The competition locally in Florida wasn't the best either, especially with where my mind was at, but I didn't view it as like the competition needed to be the best. I viewed it as I want to get some reps in, and while I'm prioritizing the gym and my overall player development. He's got workouts 5 days a week because he plays football too. So that obviously sounds good if he's a multi-sport athlete. It's his first period. So if that's going to be done mostly in like a group setting, if he's doing gym first period, that's going to be like typically, football workouts. That's where it's interesting to like dissect or like double click into the gym. Is he doing anything baseball related? Which we're really looking for like the rotational strength, ideally how we're able to rotate doing those specific drills. That's what's going to help him really move the needle forward with everything that he's got going on. Brother, can I write you on Instagram or something when I get off work? Absolutely, Billy. We always respond to our DM, so make sure to DM us. The easier way, I'm just going to tell you straight up. If you download that 7 steps course, the second link down below in the YouTube description, we'll actually start off a conversation and text you. So if you want to do that, and that way I can have your number, you can have my number, and then that way we can have that conversation, feel free to do that. And then that would probably be a little bit more of an efficient process rather than going through the DMs. So they got him power cleaning, benching, squatting, stuff like that. So those are a little bit more like the generic side. That's what I was doing in high school as well. We had a football strength coach as well. It wasn't until I got to college where I started to understand baseball-specific movements. I was doing movements for the first time in college. Think about how behind I felt. So either way, Billy, looking forward to our conversation. Download that 7 steps down below. And yeah, by the way, all these recordings are always hosted and saved on YouTube. So make sure to go over to YouTube and check it out. And also we're on episode 17. I need to change that up. We're streaming every single day, by the way, at 11 a.m. Eastern time, excluding Sundays. But yesterday I streamed because I said, why not? And it was actually a good one. I was just hanging out, watching some YouTube videos of like Bregman, Eric Sim, and then Shane Green, I think it was. So yeah, guys. All right. Do you like Nirvana? Not in particular. Like I'm indifferent. I don't necessarily really gravitate towards certain individuals as far as like a music choice or anything like that. So I am very, very much so impartial when it comes to liking Nirvana or not. But great question. Nonetheless, I love having a little bit more of those like unique questions, especially with non-baseball related stuff, because we can talk baseball all day long, but I feel like I said earlier, guys, I want to know who you guys are, where you guys are from, what state are you guys from. We just had Billy having a pretty solid chat back and forth, which I always appreciate, like having those back and forth conversations. As you can see, guys, like Billy just sent me like, let me count it up. He 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 messages back and forth. And that's what I do this for, so that way I don't have to give you vanilla answers. I can be a little bit more specific to your specific question and situation. So if you guys have any baseball related questions, feel free to ask. I typically only go live for about an hour, so we have about 20 more minutes. Don't feel shy to ask a question, even if it's like, hey, what was the food like in the big leagues, or in big league spring training? Those are all cool things. I'll give you stats from last summer before I go. 16 for 35. So like, yeah, 10 RBIs, 1 homer, only 1 K. So like those are his stats. And before you go, stats versus metrics, I don't care really about stats. I care more or less about the metrics. So this is kind of what you told me before, like arm. He was 83, 86. Topping at like 88, I think you said. Exit velocity, I'm curious where he's at there, especially since he's a middle infielder, and I want to still understand like what he's at the plate and what he's able to produce as far as the power, because this is black and white, whereas stats, he could be playing against the school of the blind. I really don't know. So it doesn't necessarily give me the best context of what those stats are. If his exit velocity is 62, that's not going to be a good look, right? Also, his 60 time, like if his 60 time is an 8.8 as a middle infield right-hand pitcher, like that's where he's really going to have to focus on his athleticism overall to be able to play baseball at the next level, especially in the middle infield, unless he's going to start basically kind of like what happened to me. I ran, as far as my 60 time, 9.5 my freshman year. And then by senior year, I got that down to a 7.4. Which again wasn't the fastest, but basically that 7.4 range kept me in the conversation as far as playing infield. And I was never known to be a fast guy. So you're able to do it even though like the industry of baseball will tell you that's slow, especially for a shortstop. I played third base in college, but then in professional baseball, weirdly enough, the 60 time isn't the most important thing. The 60 time is just a metric. How quick my first step lateral quickness was, that actually was a lot better than some players that had a better 60-yard dash time than me. So I was picking the right hops. I had good hands. I had a good enough arm to be able to play shortstop at a pretty stinking high level. I remember the first outing I ever had with the San Diego Padres in spring training was at shortstop, which was pretty cool because I never really played a lot of shortstop when I was with the Cardinals. But I have no idea what his EV is. I just got a radar. I'll let you know soon. I'd say X-Velo can get to a 90. So, like, 90 is not crazy. I've had some freshmen inside my academy from the Northeast that start at, like, like the first couple of days inside my program, they're at, like, 95 to 97 as a freshman. This is really taking into account one individual, JT Taylor. He's from Massachusetts. And, yeah, he was up to, like, 96, 97 as a freshman. He was also deadlifting 400 plus pounds as a freshman, so he's a little bit of a freak of nature. He was a catcher. 60 time at least a 7.1, so that's always good. But of course, wanting to make sure that gets down closer to a sub 7 second is always going to be preferred, especially in the recruiting process. Not like it's impossible to get recruited. Like I just said, my name is Evan Mendoza. You can check me out on Facebook. Perfect Game. Holy cow. And see that my 60 time was not anything special. And just because we're on the topic, why not? I'll go ahead and give you my perfect game, so that way you guys can see who I am. Okay, that's not me though. That's funny. There's another kid, Evan Mendoza, class of 2027. It's actually hysterical. He's getting in the gym now, so he's getting bigger daily. That's always good. Oh, I can't change my sources over on OBS. That's annoying, guys. I really wanted to be able to share with you guys the what I was looking at on my computer screen, but it's not giving me that because it's giving me the spin wheel of death. So I do apologize for that. Technical difficulties. Never fun. Come on, OBS. Why you got to be like that? I was gonna show off my perfect game profile, and now you're gonna. Yeah, no. Eli is 6'2", 155. Okay, awesome. All right, he likes Bad Bunny. I do like Bad Bunny, and Maluma as well. But yeah, Nirvana is a little bit old school for me. Not necessarily old school, but like I think there's a couple of songs that were in the Dave Mirra BMX video game or Tony Hawk Pro Skater video game from back in the day. Those are all things that, yeah, the unks know about. But yeah, guys, if you have any baseball related questions, feel free to ask and I will deliver as much as possible. Cole, hope you're having a great morning so far. Yeah, we got another Evan Fitzpatrick up in the chat. We got Chase. Awesome, guys. Well, if you guys have any baseball related questions, feel free to ask. That's the reason why I do this. My son's metrics are improving, but the interest hasn't changed. So again, this is what I've written out before, guys. Impressions, just like social media, is one of the very first things that a college coach will happen. And this is basically the timeline of how college baseball recruiting will typically happen. So first off is an impression, and then it's basically like a fractional, let's just use fractional eval based off of that impression, because ideally how you present yourself in the email will typically lead into a quick little highlight video where, again, that's going to be that fractional evaluation. From that fractional evaluation, you'll get some interest. So this is where, like, depending on how many people are clicking on your email, you can kind of have a gauge on how many people are really interested in your son. From that interest, typically what will happen is a full eval process, which might be 1 or 2 times for that specific coach to come out and watch your son play. From that evaluation, we'll typically get even more interest, and that's where we're really able to establish some level of communication with these college coaches. And from that evaluation, sometimes you'll get, an offer to go to a visit, and from that offer, you'll get an actual offer. And ideally, what we're looking for are those D1 offers, so that way we are in the area. Bro, nobody is watching. Yeah, we got streaming over on YouTube and Facebook as well, Dexter. So I could care less if there's one person, if there's zero persons over on Instagram, because we got about 12 over on YouTube, which I would prefer one person. I'd prefer one person on YouTube than 20 on YouTube, really. Or 20, it's funny. I'd rather one person on YouTube than 20 people over here on Instagram, because like you guys, a lot of you guys here on this live are probably doom scrolling. You guys are probably going to hang out with me for like 15 seconds, and that's cool. 15 seconds isn't going to necessarily move the needle for you or your development. So these are things that always you have to put into the back of your mind, because like, again, guys, I'm not here trying to condense my 7 years of professional experience down into 10 seconds. And also I'm staying consistent no matter what, Dexter. So, I'm going to do this every single day for 50 straight days, like it says up here in the top right corner. And if you're here with me, cool. If not, it's not going to hurt my feelings by any means. I'm going to stay consistent whether or not you like it. And that's the difference, I think, in my mindset of staying consistent, where a lot of high school baseball players, like, think about this, like how many high school baseball players would do that extra work as far as that practice, as far as that extra work, right? And if they don't get noticed for it, or if they don't get the playing time immediately after doing it for a week, they typically will just give up, right? Little kid stayed for 15 seconds. Absolutely. He did, because he brain rotted to the next video, because he would rather learn from, a 5-second video saying, read the caption, or, I can help you get recruited for free, or whatever the case may be. So like there are these things that we need to really think about when it comes down to the whole process, and especially what I just mentioned as far as how to get those D1 offers. The big area really is just like how many high school baseball players would do that extra work before or after high school practice, and then if they don't get the results that they're looking for in the next game, next week, or maybe next month, they give up. They throw in a towel. They don't put in that extra work because they don't see the instant gratification. And guys, you need to understand a thing called delayed gratification. So delayed gratification is basically like, how long can you do something without actually seeing the results? And I can promise you, like, if you give up, that is a guaranteed way to never see those results. If you are a plane, and this is an example that I've done before, if you are a plane, that's a plane, and you're on the runway, right? That's the runway. And you have your engines on, you're putting in that extra work, you're doing the work every single day, and you keep going, but you never get liftoff, and you just keep going, and you keep going, and you feel like, it's not working. Guys, if you turn off the engines, I can guarantee you're never going to get liftoff. So don't turn off the engines, and that is one of the best ways to have your good 20-year, what they call overnight success. So like, yes, there might be one person in this live, there could be 10 people, I could care less, but ultimately what I'm going to be doing is never turning off these engines, because these engines are what's going to help me project up into the right, get me that lift off if I'm, again, that plane. And more than likely, you or your son is that plane as well. He's putting in that work. Maybe you're not seeing the results right here, right now, but that's where, like, there's a difference between turning off the engines and modifying the engines to produce more power. So if we're thinking about modifying those engines to produce more power, that's being a little bit more specific into what we're doing into the gym, making sure that it's sport specific, making sure we're getting the results that we're looking for, and ultimately eliminating those plateaus. So these are the things that ultimately we want to be, or we want to see as far as that plane maybe not taking off, or really to assess why that plane hasn't taken off yet. And that's exactly what we actually do on eligibility reviews. So if you, or you're a player, if you're a parent watching this right now, and you're interested in working potentially one-on-one with me inside my academy, guys, we don't take on everyone. Just last night we had to deny a student because he came to the call unprepared, which is a big no-no. That is part of the evaluation or process. If you come to the call unprepared, guys, it just screams that you're not actually taking this process serious. And at the end of the day, it is your career. So if you're the player, you haven't watched any videos as far as who we are, guys, that is a big, huge red flag. If you're a parent on the same side, like, obviously this is a team effort. We're all pulling in the same direction for your son to be able to learn and grow and to develop his skills. So like, if you're not coming to the call prepared, it kind of tells and screams that you could care less about what this program is. You just want the result. And like, yes, that is true. but I want to make sure that you also understand who we are and what we do before an eligibility review. So I'm kind of just going into the details of what an eligibility review really looks like. So again, like what we're talking about, if you're that plane that hasn't taken off yet, your son is putting in that work each and every day, but we haven't seen that lift off yet, this is an area that we can definitely assess what your son's situation looks like and any areas that could be used to modify to help him, basically put those engines on the second gear, third gear, and so forth. So hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if it does, but I've used this example before because delayed gratification, we need to be that plane on the runway, and we just need to ensure that we never, ever, ever turn off the engines, because if we turn off those engines, we give up because of peer pressure, because of this, because of that, whatever the case may be. Because my high school, classmates are making fun of me. Guys, I was the quiet kid, and the one thing that I'm really proud of when I was in high school is I didn't hear I never heard the negative comments from my classmates. I just never heard it. I completely blocked it out. And I think that's a superpower that most high school, teenagers just aren't able to do, because it is difficult. But when it's all said and done, I'll never forget. Fun little story, by the way, guys. I'll never forget when I was posting very consistently on TikTok, and I didn't even have a ton of followers. I think I might have had anywhere between 70 and 130,000 followers. So in my mind, I was still relatively small. And I'll never forget, I got a comment one day from someone. I think it was a girl, and I really didn't know who it was. But the comment said, "When the quiet kid in your high school class has his own merch line," which back then I had my own merch, and I love selling my own merch. It was just something that I actually did these lives for, so that's why I kind of enjoy it. I would do lives, I would create merch, and then basically I would sell it right there on the spot for any baseball fans. And I'll never forget, that is the epitome of I was never in high school to impress you or any of my other classmates or any of my other teammates. When I was in high school, I had one goal, and that was to be as driven as possible and to be able to do the work that most wouldn't do. So that way, in 5, 10, 15 years, I can do cool things that most high school baseball players or most of my teammates or most of my classmates only could wish that they could do, right? So, playing alongside Yadier Molina was pretty cool. I remember I pinch ran for Xander Bogaerts once, and on second base it was Fernando Tatis Jr., and at the plate it was Manny Machado, so I was kind of sandwiched between those two guys. So that was pretty cool. So things like that, your typical high school classmate would probably really want to do that. And then also your typical high school baseball teammate probably wants to be in those situations. And it really takes the sacrifice to be able to put yourself in those situations to be able to get the things that you really want to see in life. This isn't necessarily all about baseball, guys. And especially if you're a parent listening to this, it's not just about baseball. It's about, going after the things that you want to go after and not necessarily hearing all the noise, because there's going to be noise that is always spread. You need to be basically that blocker to make sure that you can keep that peace of mind of what is your vision, where are you going, where are you at, and where did you come from. These are the things that I think it's always important to keep in the back of your mind, so that way we can stay motivated, we can stay positive, we can understand there's a bigger vision than all of this noise that's behind you, because all that noise is always going to come behind you. And really, this can be relatable to posting on social media, staying consistent, putting in that extra work, because if you put in that extra work and you're the worst hitter on the team, yes, there might be some teammates that basically give you a hard time, but you can't focus on that, because again, if we turn off those engines, we'll never be able to take off if we're that plane on the runway trying to take off. So really, we need to block all that noise. We need to understand, hey, we know that we were the worst hitter on the team in high school. We know where we came from. We know where we're at right now. Maybe we gained our exit velocity 5 miles an hour. That's always great. But now, where are we going? Where are we trying to go? Are we trying to land that college commitment, or are we trying to be better than everyone else by a landslide? Are we trying to play professional baseball? Are we trying to get drafted? Are we trying to be a first rounder? Are we trying to be a Hall of Famer? Guys, the bigger you dream, the bigger those dreams and goals are. When you shoot for those stars, maybe you don't hit them, but as long as you're dreaming big, that's where you can land on those clouds and maybe play professional baseball, which is still a really big accomplishment. So that was always my mentality. I remember hearing a Kanye West song that is shoot for the stars, and if you missed, you'll still land on the clouds. And I really took that to heart. And that's something that I just really embody. And I want to make sure that your son also embodies that as well. I want to make sure that you guys understand that there are bigger visions and really powers out there than the negativity power that a lot of your high school teammates might have, a lot of the angry parents will have. Because believe it or not, guys, when I was a freshman on varsity, there's a lot of teammates and a lot of parents that didn't believe that I should have been on varsity. So think about what that dynamic might look like. And it wasn't easy by any means. I was in, and this is where I always attribute my head high school coach, Jim McCandless. He really took me under his wing to make sure that even though I was swimming in bloody waters, he ensured that I was not going to be picked on. He wasn't going to allow me to be an outsider. He just like really included me into the group of seniors, and the seniors loved me because they knew I was a baller. They knew I was serious. They knew I was game for baseball. So like that was something that like really was special in my entire career. It's just those times at Severna Park High School in Severna Park, Maryland, and I just enjoyed myself playing ball, but I didn't view the noise or the negativity too much of those freshmen or those sophomores. Like I was way bigger and better than those guys that were talking negatively about me, and I just kept in my lane. I kept to myself. I was typically pretty quiet because I was a quiet kid in high school. So these are all things that could be relatable to you or your son's situation, and there are ways to break out of it. It's just really coming down to what's in between the ears and making sure that we actually have a plan in place to achieve those things. Because if you never have a plan in place to achieve them, more than likely we're going to fall short. If we never have those big dreams and goals, again, we're probably going to fall short. So it's really important to build that structure in everything that we've got going on. But yeah, guys, since we are wrapping up and we are nearing the end, if you guys are enjoying this type of content, make sure to hit the subscribe button over on YouTube. That way you get notifications sent to your email when I do go live, typically every single day at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So that way I can have a coffee and baseball. Bring your coffee if you're a parent. And then that way we can have a little bit of a conversation on where you're currently at as far as your baseball journey, how we can basically expand on that journey and maybe modify those engines like we talked about to help get you on that liftoff. So I'm going to wrap things up right now. We're not going to do a recap because for whatever reason, OBS has been spinning like crazy. So what I want to do right now is a force quit once we end this live, and join me on the next one, guys. Take care.